Well, first, let me begin with an apology. We are running a little late, and then we had a few technology glitches, but such is life. So thank you for your patience and the smiles looking back at us. So we now call this meeting to order. The time is 5:41. There you go. The time is 5:41. Ms. Raymond, please let the record show that all board members are present. And would you please join me in saying the pledge to our flag? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Item 2.03, approval of agenda. Our next agenda item is approval of the agenda, and the recommended action is that the board approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Board Member Kincaid moved, and Board Member Mahamakani second. Let's vote. Oh, no. It does look like we're voting on the pledge.
Let's just do a verbal.
Just vote yet, okay. Thank you. We'll do a verbal vote on the agenda since that we're, on our screen, it says we're voting about the pledge. So, Board Member Provance?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. Well, I don't believe we have any board comments this evening, do we? Okay, all right. Well, we'll skip that part. Item 4.01, these items are being brought forward for review. We will vote on these items on June 24th, 2025 at our regularly scheduled meeting. Number 5, board policy. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, please.
Is that okay?
Yes, it is. Board Member Mahamakani.
I want to, first off, start by saying thank you for the replies that are so quick. And it's mostly clear for me, but since it's a study session, I think I'll visit later. I think it's just more conducive for me, and I don't want to drag everyone down my rabbit holes, because once I go down it, I got to get it all the way to the end before I come out. And then the other thing I wanted to say was I noticed that we have a new contract with Missouri State University under the Department of Student Access and Opportunity, which is for the Future Educators Program. And we're going to be utilizing the Department of Secondary and Elementary Education's Grow Your Own framework. Starts the principal smart. I just want to say I'm really glad to see us moving away from discriminatory practices, whether they're perceived or real. I'm just glad that we're doing this, and I want to encourage the district to continue these efforts moving forward. That's all.
This is the third year of our implementation of the Future Educators Program.
It's a little different, though. Yes, it is.
Well, it is a good program.
It is a very good program.
It benefits us, and it benefits our community, and it benefits our students, and helps us get teachers during a teacher shortage, so. All right, any other comments from the board?
Did you have any comments on the KCOG?
Did you have any other comments or
No,
questions?
no, I was
Okay,
good.
that was it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, board policy. There are a few policies being brought forward for review. from MSBA due to legislation and minor language changes. Please review these policies and submit any questions to Dr. Lathan. These policies will be brought forward for a vote at our next meeting. Questions or comments related to that? Okay. Item 6.01, end of the year and ESY summer transportation route approval. Mr. Sean Dilday will provide us information.
Good evening. So in your board packets this evening is the reimbursement piece for transportation. This is an annual item that we have to approve to get the reimbursement from the state. So is there any questions I can entertain pertaining to this? We do have a June 30 deadline on the approval of this.
I don't have a question, but I want to make a comment.
Okay.
I want to take this opportunity to commend the dedication to improving our transportation services, and especially under the directorship of is it Mr. Keith Adams, just continually enhancing services. So it has to be said.
Thank you. I will pass that along.
Thank you for doing that.
What I will say about that process, it appears to me to be a huge math problem that is absolutely mind-boggling when he talks about that. So thank you for pointing that out. I mean, he really has done a very nice job.
Keith
needs
is
to
doing
be
an exceptional
commended.
job with the Transportation Department, and we continue to find possibilities of improvement.
Yeah. And the buses were rolling in my neighborhood on the first day of summer school. Some of them were, so there you go.
And no hiccups.
Well, I don't know, the one bus in front of my house had to back up and go, no, I'm teasing. Teasing. Okay. Next item, 6.02, is bus purchase. Mr. Dilday, if you will please stay at the podium and inform us.
So in part of the transportation upgrades, we are looking at trying to get every bus with air conditioning this next fiscal year or next school year. Keith has worked and has found 6 used buses with 30,000 miles or less on each that all carry a full warranty. We're asking to approve trading in some buses that does not have air conditioning, that does have a considerable amount of mileage, and this purchase would be for 6 buses, 77 passenger type Cs, and it'd be $696,000. And this is part of the annual rotation that we have a line item budget for. I'm sorry?
That's a heck of a deal.
It is. We found this with a local vendor, and it's a great opportunity for school districts to save some money and upgrade the fleet.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Dr. Mahamakani?
Thank you for going down this rabbit hole with me. And I know it took a couple exchanges, and I just want to say I appreciate everyone's patience.
No problem. And
Sometimes,
Keith,
when you go there, it's like, well, I've got to know everything. I got to get to the very end, and I did.
Yes.
And so, not that I'm an expert, but for the next bus purchase, I got this.
And Keith did his diligence in providing the information for that.
Yeah, I don't think we've had something like this. So to Ms. Smart, continually learning. Year 5? Yeah, year 5, and I'm still learning.
I do have a question, and it's related. At one point, we talked about buying more energy-efficient buses. Is that in the plan still, or is that? Yeah.
We have not really gone down. I have had some conversations with electric buses in some other larger school districts, but we have not gone down that rabbit hole, so to speak. We did buy some propane buses. We're finding that the breakdown of mileage costs is not that great in comparison to the diesel buses. And running 3 tiers with electric buses is a major issue. Okay. Thank you.
One more. Oh, I have one too.
Oh.
We have a lot of questions about buses. It's such
Yeah.
a fun topic. As a new board member, is 6 kind of usually the number that we're turning over annually? Or were we able to purchase more this year because we found?
We typically
better deal,
purchase
or?
around 9-ish to 10.
Okay.
But we're also doing, to save some funds, we're doing HVAC, air conditioning retrofits on newer buses. So we're air conditioning part of our fleet as a retrofit and then purchasing these 6 buses. And we have line item budgets for that already established. So we decided to just do the 6 and we could afford to air condition the rest.
Wonderful.
Dr. Mohammed Khan.
Bus related, I forgot about the propane buses, and I remember we had credits on them, rebates. So thank you for asking the question that, because, down the road, so we're coming to the realization that diesel is better than propane. But I'm morbidly curious, did we get those credits?
Yes, we did.
We did actually get them, because I remember Kelly asking about it, remember? So we did get it. So we probably won't do propane, maybe.
We probably will not make that
Okay.
recommendation to go down
Got
that
it.
road again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6.03, collective bargaining agreements. Dr. Range, will you please join us at the podium?
Ms. Bruner, Dr. Lathan, members of the board, thank you for having me this evening present the collective bargaining agreements, at least the red lines, the first read. So pursuant to Board of Education Policy HA in February 2025, the district began negotiations with Springfield National Education Association and Teamsters Local Union Number 245 to reach tentative agreements related to wages, benefits, and other terms and conditions of employment for covered employees. To accomplish this, the district met with SNEA for about 74 hours, and we met with Teamsters for 6 hours. The various negotiation teams reached tentative agreements. Approval of the board will be requested at the next board meeting on June the 24th, 2025, during the regular board meeting. So in your packet, you have the 9 units that are covered by SNEA redlined. You have the one CBA that's for transportation folks who are covered by the Teamsters. And then during negotiations with the admin assistants, during the economic portion of those negotiations, they ask us to consider an explore side letter for that unit, which those side letters came to you, the other side letters came to you in February. This one came up during economics negotiations with them around 12-month employees, getting a little bit of a pay bump for those that are working in Explore site. So that's what that admin Explore side letter is referencing, and you've got that red line too. So with that being said, I will answer any questions you might have.
Board members, questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. Range.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next item, 7.03, proposed rates and fees for 2025-2026. Dr. Lathan?
Yes, good evening, board members. As it relates to the proposed rates for 25-26, you'll notice just a few changes. A decrease in tuition rates that's calculated per DESE, also increasing middle school yearbook prices, so they're going up slightly. Lunch and breakfast prices is based on the calculation from the National School Lunch Program. And then our transportation pay-to-ride fees, and then also lunch tuition rates. And so all that information is attached to the particular board item. Are there any questions?
Board members, questions, comments?
I had a question. I think I just realized it now. I apologize. So we're decreasing can you explain the decrease in the tuition rate, but then the increase in the launch? Is that the decrease? So when we have to pay another district for a student that then relocate, can you explain that? Okay.
Yeah, so if you're looking just at, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. If you're looking just at the tuition rate in that proposed fee, so there's a calculation that DESE provides, and that is for tuition to come to Springfield Public Schools if you want to pay tuition, if you own property within the district, there's certain rules, right? So that is the tuition that you would pay to attend SPS. That is separate from the launch tuition rate that's increasing. So that tuition rate that is set for SPS is based off prior year expenditures. So when you take into account, it's based off prior year expenditures, which is why last year's tuition rate was so high, because we had COVID expenditures in the ESSER dollars. That's gradually going down as our expenditures are becoming less without those COVID dollars, so the tuition rate decreased.
So the tuition rate is for a student to come here wholly. Let's say we have an administrator that works here,
Yeah,
so their student
currently,
comes here.
well,
Teacher,
Not even in that case. In that case, they would just come here, right? They wouldn't have to pay tuition if they were an employee's child, right? Is that correct?
but we
Yeah.
would recoup tuition from their district, but then we would get less because our tuition's lower, right?
So in this case, for this tuition rate, it is for just individuals, not employees,
Oh.
who want to send their child to SPS. And there's certain rules. I think you have to own some sort of property within the district and be paying personal property tax or real estate tax on that. That portion that you're paying in taxes is then deducted from the tuition rate, and you pay the remaining balance. We currently don't have anyone paying tuition to come in this year.
That's what I thought, okay. But if we did,
But if we
that
did,
price
that's
is
what it would be
reduced.
calculated on,
But
yeah.
if we did have, let's say, a teacher's child, because they have the option
Mm-hmm.
to attend, we do recoup that from their district,
Not
right?
local tax dollars. They become our
But
student as
state.
far as state
But
tax dollars
state
goes.
tax
Mhm.
dollars, okay.
Yeah.
And then the launch tuition rates is that
That's
for
for partner
MOCAP,
dis-
or is
no.
that for individual
For
courses?
partner districts.
Individual
districts.
courses? Because for the full, it's decreased because of our tuition rates going down, right, or no?
The non-virtual.
How about for the virtual MOCAP?
So the virtual MOCAP, no one pays tuition on that because they're our students. So we get state aid on MOCAP students.
Okay. But we've increased the per class rate.
Partner rate for non-MOCAP courses.
Got it.
Yes. Any other questions?
Other
on fees?
questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm staying, so.
So next, item 7.01, 2025-2026 budget recommendations. Ms. Kara Stasel will stay at the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Sorry, I didn't follow the rule about my presentation and the timer. All right, so tonight's budget presentation is our final budget presentation of this season. And again, this is a combination of months of work leading up to this final presentation. It is the best information that we have at this time, and as we get better information throughout the year, of course, we bring budget amendments and revisions to the board for approval. So a review of our presentation objectives for this evening. We'll do a review of the timeline, the budget timeline, the budget process, and the funds within the budget. We'll review operating revenue and expenditure changes. We'll review the dedicated supports for success-ready students, and then we'll have the operating projections for FY26 and beyond, and then we'll cover the remaining funds projected for FY26. So this is a slide that you're familiar with. You've seen it multiple times this year, but this is a review of our process and timeline for the budget development cycle. So budget development, again, it begins as quickly as it ends. So you all will approve something, vote on something at the end of June, and then in July, I'm already looking at how that budget is reacting and how actuals are reacting, and we bring those monthly amendments as a part of the treasurer's report. In August, we will have our tax rate hearing and the adoption of, that should say the 2025 tax rate for 25-26 revenues. I apologize, I'll get that corrected. And then we have the budget development process that really kicks off with all of our budget leaders in September. I'm sorry, that's historical. So yes, that was correct for August. But in September of this year, we kicked off our budget development with leaders. Part of that capital planning process kicks off in September. And then we start small group meetings with the Board of Education in December. Collective bargaining started in February. We have all of the legislative impact at the state level happening, trying to wrap that up and get information out of the state level budget by the end of May. That hasn't quite worked out this year. And then June 24, we'll have the final recommendation for the board to vote on. Again, this is a review of the budget development presentations that we have provided. So we've had multiple small group meetings, public presentations at board meetings, and then we also snuck in between the budget presentation and the recommendation for vote, some additional small group meetings that will occur next week. The board, or the budget recommendation aligns to these statutory requirements, which also aligns to Board Policy DB, the annual budget. So as a part of this budget recommendation, there is, the 5 components are included, which is the budget message, the estimated revenues and expenditures, and the amount required for the payment of our debt, and a general budget summary. And of course, budget development does align to the strategic plan, so any changes that are in the budget, whether it's in the operating fund or other funds, are tied to one of the governing priorities that live within the strategic plan. This slide provides just a review of the funds, which we've talked about at the previous board meetings and in small group. Again, we have the general and teachers fund, which we refer to as the operating fund, and that is where those day-to-day expenditures happen, where salary and benefits for all staff live, and then the purchase services and supplies. We have the debt service fund, which is the retirement or payment of our tax-approved debt. We have our capital projects fund, which in this case includes all bond projects, right? So it all rolls up to DESE as one capital project fund, but we keep them separated out into 2 different funds for transparency. And then we have the health benefit trust fund, or the self-insurance fund. So first we'll start with our operating fund revenues, local, county, state, and federal. So these are just highlighting the primary changes in the budget. So one thing to highlight is our local tax revenue. So the estimated increase for next year is $4.5 million. Once again, we've talked about this in small group, but one thing that we still have our eye on is the impact of the tax freeze for senior citizens. So we'll have more information and we'll update the board once we have that in the fall. So some of the assumptions that informed this projected increase are listed here. So strong new construction, which is where a lot of our new revenue comes from. This next year is a reassessment year, and we've already seen some reassessments coming in fairly high, but as a reminder, the most that we can capture is the lowest of 5%, what CPI was, or what our actual growth in reassessment was. So we know that actual growth in reassessment is probably going to be higher than 5%, so that caps us at 5%. But CPI was actually lower than 5%, so we're going to be limited to CPI. And also provided there at the very bottom of the slide is the assessed valuation as a percentage of the market value of personal property, commercial real estate, residential real estate, and agriculture. So for basic formula, classroom trust fund, or our state aid, a projected increase of $2.5 million is included for next year. This assumes, well, I say full funding of the K-12 formula, but we have made our assumptions based off of the state adequacy target remaining unchanged at 6760 for next year. Due to the uncertainty going on at the state level with the budget, we felt that it was wise to kind of be cautious until we actually saw those dollars realized and paid to districts. So again, as a reminder, that could increase up to 7145 on that SAT. I think it's going to land somewhere in the middle probably, just based on maybe what they fund and how the revenues are allocated to it. But again, we'll update the board once we have better information. We also have the implementation of Senate Bill 727. 2 provisions within that Senate bill start to take effect next year. So one of those is the way that state aid is calculated. It will shift from being 100% average daily attendance to 90% average daily attendance and 10% weighted membership. And we've talked about that again in small groups, and that weighted membership is the average between our September membership count and our January membership count. And then we have the 169-day school calendar incentive. So in order to qualify for that incentive next year, you would have had to have had a calendar in this current year that was 169 days or more. AMI days do count towards that 169 days, and I think we'll qualify for that 169-day incentive next year. So it is included in the budget. We have a revised dollar value modifier, so it is actually dropping from this year to next year ever so slightly to 1.031. So Proposition C sales tax, we have an estimated increase next year of $722,000. And this, again, is a local tax, a tax that's collected locally, sent back up to the state, and then distributed to districts based on our weighted average daily attendance, or WADA. So the amount per WADA is actually going down next year, but the reason that we're getting an increase is due to the way that that WADA is being calculated to include that weighted membership. So that's what's causing our increase. So moving on to operating fund expenditures. First, we have a slide that represents the expenditures for next year, the changes that are supporting Governing Priority 1 Success Ready students. So we have 3 items listed here. First is special education staffing. We have an increase of $1.2 million to support the increase of 18 FTE, which results in 7 special education teachers, 9 special education paraprofessionals, and 2 process coordinators. We have an estimated increase for OTC tuition. So the tuition at OTC went up this year. Their board approved for it to go up. That increase is estimated. We'll have better numbers, and a budget revision will likely come once we know student participation numbers next year. And then we have an allocation for professional learning compensation. This next slide provides an overview of the allocations that are already built into the budget to support the district's ongoing work related to student behavior and the implementation of consistent discipline at all sites. So these resources range from additional staffing to curriculum to just training to ensure district-wide alignment of efforts. And so these are the items that, again, are built into the budget already. These are not necessarily new items coming to you, but just what is already dedicated in the budget. And we have FTE resources dedicated to this of 63, and then $4.6 million dedicated towards this strategic initiative. So moving on to Governing Priority 2, Organizational Efficiency and Excellence. We have a compensation recommendation of $9.3 million to support increases to the salary schedules for staff. That $9.3 million also includes the gross employer match for things like retirement, Social Security, and Medicare. And those final recommendations from the collective bargaining process and for employees not impacted by a collective bargaining agreement will be presented to the board on June 24th. Next, we have our expenditure estimate for increases to benefits. So in order to sustain that health benefit trust fund at a healthy level, we are anticipating around a 3% increase to the premiums for next year. Those plan designs and rates will be provided to the board by October 1st, 2025. That's currently still out to bid, and we're working through that as well. But the estimated increase at this time is $791,000. So a portion of that 791 is to cover the increase that we saw this past January, so that takes us through December, and then the other portion of this increase is the projected amount needed for the first part of 2026. So as a part of the budget development process this year, and if you recall last year, one of the districts, one of the communications was that the district was going to have to reduce expenditures by $15 million over the next 2 years. And that was in addition to the $15 million that was reduced out of last year's budget. And so as a part of the budget development process this year, leaders were tasked with a comprehensive review of their budgets to determine where they could reduce or find efficiencies in their budgets. And that overall process through looking at purchase servicing and supplies and looking at staffing resulted in an estimated $10.5 million in reductions. Now, about $2 million of that was realized in the current year as maybe staff retired early, or we found purchase service and supply things we weren't really using. We could go ahead and pull those down in the current year. So that net result is an $8.3 million reduction out of next year's budget. So other things impacting the operating fund is, of course, the Launch Virtual Learning Program. So budget changes for next year include a slight reduction in revenue due to a net result of two things happening, right? We saw an increase in tuition, we just kind of talked about with proposed rates and fees, but there was also a reduction for a grant that we get from the state. And I will say this grant, we reduce it every year, and then they end up giving it to us because they have the money. So I'm going to keep reducing it in hopes that they keep giving it to us. So I'm hoping to come back with an amendment next year saying, hey, we got it, but I don't want to bank on that yet. So there's a good chance that the revenue comes in higher, but for now, we're gonna play it cautious. And the expenditures, we have it says net decrease, it's an increase due to a decrease in supplies due to that kind of efficiency review of the budget, but then we have an increase for salary and benefits for staff. So overall, very slight increase in expenditures for the launch program. And then down at the bottom, there are $2 amounts listed. So that $4.9 million is a return to SPS out of the launch fund to support infrastructure, right? So we kind of talked about this last year a little bit too, but there are certain things within our district operating budget that we don't actually code directly to launch. So things like our HR system or our ERP system or really staff time. So any time I dedicate to it, we don't code a portion of my salary over to launch. So that's a return to SPS for investment, for infrastructure things and different things like that. And then the launch fund itself retains a 10% fund balance based on next year's projected expenditures. So that fund itself has a set aside of $1.7 million that is restricted for the launch fund itself. This slide provides a launch fund projection. So that first column, we have the audited actuals for last year. The next column is revised budget for the current year. We have proposed budget for next year, and then 2 years of projected budget. And so you can just see how those revenues and those expenditures kind of play out over the next couple of years. And then we have a line for the surplus and the deficit. And again, that surplus deficit, a portion of that comes back to the operating fund balance for SPS for infrastructure, and the other portion of that stays within the launch fund for their fund balance. So this slide represents that operating fund balance percentage historical and projected trend line. So I really like this chart, one, because I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to numbers, but two, it shows a lot of different things. So that green line shows our historical and projected fund balance, and again, it climbed up with the influx of the federal stimulus funds, and we've got that plan to kind of get it back down to a 17 to 18% fund balance. The blue line represents where the strategic plan calls for the fund balance to be, and that's 17%. And then board policy is in orange, and it calls for a 15% fund balance. So this slide provides the operating fund projections from FY25 to FY29. And planning that far in advance is very tough, but this is our best shot of it right now. I'm sure it'll change by the time we get to FY29. But you can see all revenues at the top in that first blue line and kind of what they do and what we have them projecting over the next several years. And then, thank you, the total expenditure line is that second blue line, and you can kind of see how that is trending over the next several years. And again, the biggest impact to that expenditure line is our salary and benefits. So when you're giving increases that your revenues can't keep up with and they're rolling on top of themselves, it becomes a snowball that's kind of hard to sustain if your revenues aren't there. Now, whatever happens at the state level with the SAT will definitely impact our revenue line, right? So I've got my fingers crossed that great things happen there, but we're not projecting that quite yet. We also have that surplus deficit line for you as well, so you can see what's happening with the difference between our revenues and our expenditures. And you see the transfer out to Fund 4 line. So again, that transfer is out to our Fund 40, our capital to support our capital projects fund, so non-bond capital dollars. And then in yellow, we have the fund balance percentage, and you can see how that is trending. This slide is new this year, and I thought it was something interesting for the board to take a look at. This is the operating fund balance days of operation calculation. So what this actually does is it takes your operating expenditures and divides it by the annual days of operation, so 260 days for our district. And it gives you a cost per day to operate. So our cost per day for next year, based on our projected expenditures, is $1.4 million. So if you think of every day that we're maybe not in session for a snow day, or if something happens due to a natural disaster, it's $1.4 million that it takes on the average to turn the lights on and to pay our employees every day. So I thought that was just kind of an interesting thing to view. The other thing that this calculation provides is the number of operating days that our current fund balance supports. So if all revenue stopped, if there was some sort of interruption with revenue and we received no more, our fund balance could carry us for about 68 days before we had no more funds. So you look at that fund balance and you think it's quite large, but really it only gets you 68 days, right? Hopefully we never just lose all of our revenue overnight, but crazier things have probably happened. So anyway, just wanted to put that before the board. Thought it was an interesting piece of information for you to have. So moving on to our other funds outside of the operating fund, we have the debt service fund. And again, this is the fund that is used to pay off our tax-approved debt. The revenues from this fund are generated off of our tax levy that is set in August. And then the expenditures are based on our debt levy schedule, or I'm sorry, our debt schedule to pay back those general obligation bonds. Next, we have our capital projects fund budget recommendations. So again, the majority of these revenues are really merchants and manufacturers tax. That's a tax that we collect that we're able to the board's able to place where they want it to be placed. A lot of districts put it in their operating fund and then transfer it over. We directly receipt it into capital, so that's about $10.3 million. We also have that proposed transfer from operating of $5 million to support our capital projects fund. And the expenditures next year are estimated to be $23.2 million. We have our 2023 bond fund, so it's taken a second, but it really should ramp up next year as we look at our drawdown schedule for Pipkin and Reed. Those expenditures should increase quite dramatically. So we've got a $95 million budget planned for next year, and then a $6 million revenue budget. And just as a reminder, all of our revenues for our bonds are received at the time that you sell those bonds. So those were received back in June of '23, and that's why that fund balance is so big. So that carries forward every year to pay for those expenditures. And finally, we have our health benefit trust fund. So the recommended budget for next year for revenue is $39.2 million. We have $38.7 million for expenditures. Those revenues come from the fund balance carryover and then the employer and employee paid insurance premiums and some interest income on those. And then the expenditures are used to pay for health claims and some small administrative fees, and then some wellness programming. And again, a 3% increase is anticipated at this time, but those final recommendations will be presented to you in October, or before October. Next, we have the general budget summary. So again, this structure should look fairly familiar to you as it follows the same structure as what's presented to you in treasurer's reports each month. The very bottom portion of this is our estimated actuals for the current year and where we believe we might land. We're still finalizing end of year expenditures and revenues, and we have several weeks to go. And then the top portion is our recommended budget for next year. And so you can see all of the revenues and expenditures by fund and where that operating fund balance is projected to be. And so a comprehensive budget document is posted in preparation for the budget votes. You'll have 2 weeks to study that over. We'll meet in small group next week to answer any questions that you might come up with, and then we'll take that vote on June 24th.
Thank you, Mrs. Stasel. Questions or comments from the board?
This is just a clarification. The money from launch returned to SPS to support infrastructure, does that go into capital or operating?
Operating, yep.
And the membership dues for launch the actuals were much different from the projected. Is there a reason why? It's 5,000 projected for each year, and then the actuals was like 50, some, I don't know, it was different.
See if I can-
64?
I might have to go back to the slide so I can actually see. All right, where are we looking?
I'm looking at line number 1 for membership dues.
Oh, okay, the actuals for last year. I think we had several districts join last year that maybe we weren't anticipating for 23, 24. And so again, we kind of always project 5,000 because you just don't know who all's going to join and sign up. But I guess that year was a little bit higher as we had other, I mean, I think we just hit, what, 400 partners, is that right? Something like that? Yeah. So I'm guessing that was a lot of that. And of course, we could adjust that budget up, but until we really know what's going to happen, if we can get all 500, that'd be great.
Thank you. Oh, and I like slide 22 a lot, the new one.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, may I have a question?
Yeah.
I know that we moved some money from capital into the operating that might cover,
Operating to capital.
operating
Yeah.
capital, sorry, to cover indoor facility, and I know that it's pretty broad and we haven't talked about it. So I don't know if this is an appropriate time to talk about 7.5 million, because I really love the idea of an indoor facility, but I just don't feel that the current funds that are available right now will give us the bang for our buck that we would expect. We're under the construction, and Sean was there for the Pipkin, and we're going to build a new middle school that's going to last another 100 years. Pipkin lasts the first 100, we're going to put another 100 on it. And I can't see 7.5 million. I want to do it in comparison maybe to other school districts that have an indoor facility, and I realize it's on the campus, it's tied to their curriculum, and this is going to be a shared facility. And I just think that we need to have more money.
Yeah, so just to clarify one thing, so transferring dollars from operating to capital was not solely to support that. That transfer happens pretty much every year to support any capital needs.
Got it.
Because our fund balance in capital had grown to a fairly healthy level, usually it's about 15 million, and we were creeping up into the upper 20s. We had some bandwidth to do some one-time projects, and this was one of those that got brought forward.
Can I just,
Yes, please.
can I just answer a few things, or you have some more comments first?
If I stop, they'll restart my clock for 5 minutes.
Oh, so, okay, so
I'm gonna, I want to hear
you want to stop? No, because, so part of it is, as you just heard Ms. Staples say, is that is a normal occurrence. So board members, since we spoke, I guess, 2-3 weeks ago, when we had our last group of small budget meetings, I received feedback from some of you around the concern of, is it enough money? Location, do we need more than one? And so our team has been exploring over the past several weeks, and I want to discuss that with you over the next several weeks of what are our options. A facility like this still would be treated like a bond project. And the reason I say like a bond project is a step-by-step process. And I want to take you back to the whole Pershing discussion. If you recall, when we were approved for the bond, we first presented the budget to the board. We said Pershing would be a renovation based on the feedback we received. And then we went out and cost and did a price, right? And we brought you in and said, hey, board members, we can renovate for this amount, or we can build brand new for this amount. And at that time, the board made a decision, hey, let's build a new facility. We know it's going to cost us, I think we added about $6 or $7 million more. I could be off on the numbers exactly. That's the same process that we need to use, and we will use for the indoor practice facility, is holding those discussions with you, saying, here are our options, and then the board making actually a true final decision on the option. So in our budget, if you look in the summary that you have, that information, I think it's around page 8. Let me get to my page. On page 8, what I did is just kind of reclassified it. So under the capital projects funds, it says athletic activities enhancements. That way, because we've also, there are some other facilities, athletic facilities, that need some upgrades or renovations. And so I want to actually bring back to you a package that says, we can do this for, right now, I'm saying the 7.5 million, or we can do this and we might need additional monies. They would not necessarily come out of the 25-26 budget. It could really come out of 26-27 of here's a 2 to 3 year plan of what we need to do. However, we do need dollars to get started. And Sean, if I'm wrong, you correct me on getting our architects involved and getting some designs and some concepts similar to what we brought you from Pershing. It does not give you it's not the true renderings, but it's just renderings. It's not the true designs. And so that's where we are, because I will tell you though, we went from one facility to possibly two board members said 2 facilities. I know there are concerns about some of the locations because we want to use existing property and we want to make sure. I think one of the comments I made did not clearly articulate that this indoor facility is a year-round facility. It's not just about winter months. I think I mentioned that because that's one of the biggies for me, is those sports that need a place to practice during the winter months. But we would be using this facility for 12 months. Now, I want to also share, because I know board members, you asked me this question. We cut positions, but we're building this is, remember, a one-time expense versus ongoing expenses are 2 different things. Ongoing expenses, which we are so pleased and appreciate that the board has really definitely the past 4 years, supported our recommendation to increase salaries and benefits for all of our employees. But remember, capital dollars cannot be used for salaries and benefits. It has to be used for capital improvements and enhancements. And so the caution I would say to you and to ease your concerns is we're just at step 1. Because if you look at the monies we have in capital, like I said, we can move monies around inside of the capital piece. We need additional money, or we might have to move from operating to capital expenses. Now, let's go back. Actually, this slide go to slide 22, Kara. Actually, go back 1 slide first. And so you'll see our operating fund projections, but you also see our funds projections over the next several years. And the reason we do that is we want to make sure that not only the board, but the staff members see how we plan up to 5 years out. And as you see, and like I say, it's a plan, and things could change. Now go to the next slide. Now, if we get to these 67.92, things would definitely change and we would have to figure something out. But we've planned accordingly to be able, like I said, to build in those salary increases. We know we want to definitely always, as we look at teacher salaries, we look at our operational side. So that's extremely important, but I don't want people to mix the funds up and understand that we cannot use the capital dollars that are set aside or move it back into operating funds to do that, because I know that question continuously comes up. But that's kind of where we are. Like I said, we've set aside some time for you to come in next week to further discuss the budget, what you've heard over the past several months, but also for you to be able to ask additional questions, and then we bring that information back again and share publicly.
Board Member Provance, did you want to reclaim your 3 minutes remaining?
Okay. So she's making me let a cat out the bag. I'm just telling you, I try. My people get me. This time, I want you to know it's Coach Provance. So as I said, athletic and activities enhancements. One of our concerns, and can I start about the capital planning process, and then I'm going to answer that question, because I know, look at Joe. He's getting ready to come out of his seat. He want to hear what I'm ready to say. So every year, we start the capital improvement process. All of our principals and our directors are able to put in their requests. So we start that process in August, September, finalize those requests mid-October. Then our cabinet looks at those requests. We give those requests to our outstanding executive director of business services here. And then she says, yay, nay, you might want to reduce this, you might want to not do this. And so then that's how we generate the list that we first present to the board members in December. One of the concerns that was not on our radar last fall was Harrison Stadium. Harrison Stadium, if you was not aware, is the stadium for Central High School. And it's actually sits right there as part of the Drury campus, but it's actually SPS facilities. And so when we had an opportunity, I, along with our team, to visit Harrison Stadium, there are major concerns that we need to do something as it relates to Harrison. Renovate, once again, it's one of those things, do we renovate it? Do we make additional changes? Our other 4 high schools, those stadiums and facilities have had some upgrades over the past several years. Harrison has not. And so that's another thing that, another project that we need to look at. And that's why I said, as we look at the indoor practice facility, we also have to look at what the cost is to make those renovations and improvements at Harrison Stadium. And that's why I said the indoor practice facility and now Harrison Stadium would be treated like a bond project where we need to discuss and say, here's the steps, and then bring it back to the board to say, board members, here are the figures, here's what we would like to do, and then for the board members to make that decision. Joe, don't call me tomorrow, don't call Stephen tomorrow asking us questions about it. You heard it all. You were actually the first one to hear it, so run out and, you know how they used to run through the newsroom? Pretend you're running through the newsroom, run through the boardroom, no. Okay, it did, okay. Oh, you're on a roll, sister, just go ahead. So would I.
Thank you so much for those projects. That I want to support athletics and activities. We've done so much to support academics, and I can tell you that there are so many students that whatever experience, whatever their interest is, if we can capture it, you run with it. There are some wonderful third grade teacher at Disney has turned my grandson around on reading. The first day of summer, he went to the library, he checked out a book, and he was really excited that he could check out the next one on hold. That never would have happened to me on my first day of summer vacation. But if it's playing ball, if it's a sport, an activity, any other interest that turns the kid on, that's what we grasp and run with. So I appreciate all the academic success that you have had. And I do want to recognize you don't have to win a state championship to have really, really touched the life of a child with athletics or an activity. So hats off to Dr. Scott and Jason Michael and the activity and athletic program.
Other questions or comments from the board? I will say that, oh, I'm sorry. Did someone else? Oh, I just looked right past you. Board Member McConney, please.
I'll go in order. Let me go to slide 9. I think I have 4 slides I have questions on. I have to go there myself to remember my question. Oh, so you said you think the CPI is going to come lower. That's the first time I've heard that. How much lower do you think it's going to come?
So I believe it's based on the CPI from this past December. And I
Oh,
want to say it was like 2.6 or 2.7.
okay.
Don't hold
lower
me to
than I
that
thought.
number, but I
Okay.
will check into that and I can get it back to you.
So we have to approve a budget by July 1st. Is that state statute or board policy?
I believe it is both, but I think
is,
maybe
okay.
for sure board
Well,
policy.
here's why,
So
okay.
you can approve the current year budget and roll forward with that.
Well,
We have to approve
I've-
some budget.
I've tried to do some learning about this in light of the new legislation that's moving. That's not going to affect us. So when it goes to the Hancock Amendment, which won't kick in here, but the 2.6, 2.7. So I've just now realized that when you look at the senior citizen tax freeze, you have to actually incorporate what would have been your income into your revenue when you go to set the levy in August, and then you deduct it. Is that correct?
What would have been our revenue, meaning
So when you go to make the calculation of,
based on the senior citizen?
right, let's say we're
freeze?
going to, no, okay, just forget the senior.
Okay.
So when we go to set the levy, whether it's going to be 5% or 2.7%, we look at all the revenue that we expect, and then we are allowed to increase it by whatever percent, let's say 5%, and then we set the levy based on that.
So yeah, the levy can be set so that you don't,
Go over 5%,
will go over 5% or.
2.6 in this,
Lose
whichever.
revenue based on the prior year, right? So you want to try to.
Right, based on the prior year. So if you, I'm just going to throw a number, $1 million a year before, and let's say it's 5%, you can't generate more than $1,050,000, and therefore you set your tax levy.
You can generate more money, right? The increase can go up, but and that's based on really new construction. So if that new construction shifts, that's really where you're getting your new revenue, if you will.
But overall, you can't get more.
You can get more. So, I mean, our local revenues have increased every single year because our assessed valuation has gone up, right? So your assessed, if our assessed valuation, let's say, goes up 12%, CPI is 12%, we're capped at 5%. So at least we're gonna go up by 5%.
What are you going to go up on 5%? On everyone or just on what you captured the year before? It's on the
On your assessed
total
valuation. And then
of
you
not
set,
individuals, but of the total.
correct, our total assessed valuation, personal property and
Right.
real.
It's on the total, which could fall out differently for various individuals.
Correct, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that includes new construction or increase in assessments. Overall, you can increase your revenue by 5%.
Or more because of new construction. So
Oh,
new
other than new
construction set-
construction, yeah, other than new construction,
Correct,
okay.
correct.
So senior citizens, I was told, this, or when I've gone and read, nobody told me, is that when you do the senior tax freeze, because this is a new thing, that what would have been what you would have recouped. So apparently, the seniors don't get a lower rate. They just still get the assessment. They just get to get a credit. So then when they sell the house and somebody gets it, it slides into where the assessment is, right? They just, on their form, it comes as a credit. Their assessment doesn't actually freeze. Their assessment
does-
keeps going up.
Right, but the
and-
amount that they pay,
Right, is a credit, is frozen.
yeah. So
What
we're
I
not gonna get
learned
that.
when I went and read is that when we go to calculate our 5%,
Mm-hmm.
well, 2.7, we'll just go with 5, is based on the assessed, it includes the assessed value.
Meaning we wouldn't see an impact from, so.
No, you would. So you're supposed to
What will happen is that levy will adjust up likely to make up for the difference of revenue that we may not receive
See, I
from
was
those.
told, or I read, and then I asked, and it's like, yeah, you understanding this correct, that that's included. And then you guys, as in us, the district, would then do a deduct.
I
might-
haven't seen the new form that would incorporate that, and since it's not statewide, we get the form, the calculating.
This is old. We're not affected. This is just how we've always done it.
So there's no, to my knowledge, and again, I haven't seen the form, so the form that we use to calculate our tax levy comes from the state auditor's office.
Correct.
So it's one form for all districts, all taxing entities, right? Not all jurisdictions have implemented this tax freeze, so I'm not sure where that deduct would be on.
Right, so what I learned is that you're going to get the assessment value.
For those properties,
Yeah, and it's not going to have the seniors' tax freeze in it.
but the seniors aren't going to pay the higher levy.
Exactly. That's what I'm,
We're going to, so
to be continued later.
let's.
And then I have 3 more slides. I'll let everybody take their 5 minutes, and I'll come back to my other slide questions.
Vice President Kincaid?
I don't want to stay on this tax levy thing, but I do
go
have a
ahead.
very quick question. On the senior citizen, you're essentially saying we can levy it, but we're not going to collect it because the senior citizens don't have to pay it.
That's
That
what I
is
was
my
trying to say.
understanding, yes.
Okay, okay.
So that's yes?
Yes.
That is my understanding at this time. More information to come in
We're gonna
the fall
levy it, but we're
when I
not
have
gonna
better
collect it.
information
Collect it.
from
So we're
the
not going to see
assessor.
the
and
proceeds.
Yeah, that's bad.
It is bad. Yes. Okay,
Again, impact is unknown at this point, and I think I said it in the small groups is, we haven't gotten any better data from the assessor or the clerk to be able to inform what that impact could be on our revenues or our levy yet, and I won't have that until the fall.
now I'm going to go to my actual questions that I have. First of all, thank you, Dr. Lathan. I know that you have spent a lot of time with myself and other board members talking about the possibility of an indoor athletic facility or other funds set aside for athletic and activities enhancement, and I do look forward to continuing those conversations. Thank you for setting aside even more time next week for small group discussions so that we can make sure we're not rushing into anything and that our community and our students are given what they deserve and need. So thank you for that. I also love slide 22. Keep that next year, please. Slide 19, I had a follow-up question to Dr. Thomas Tate's question. I was also confused about the difference between the membership dues and the actual versus the budgeted. Do they just pay a one-time membership due when they join Launch? The districts, yes, and then ongoing tuition?
Yes.
Perfect. And then my final question, just because I'm curious, on slide 10, what is a revised dollar value modifier?
So that is basically an indicator of the purchasing power of the region in which you live in. So DESE sets this dollar value modifier, and it's different for all districts across the state. So it's just an adjustment based on the purchasing power of the region that you live in. So that gives us a little bit more money. So the foundation formula, once it's calculated, is multiplied, the weighted average daily attendance is multiplied by that state adequacy target and then multiplied by 1.031. So it gives us 0.031 more money than maybe an area district. But an area district could be 1.041, right? So it's just,
So if you
It's
live in
an
a more
adjustment for-
expensive community, it's going to
Probably
be
gonna
less than 1.0, most likely, or it'll be lower than ours.
lower than our, yeah, I mean, and they're all posted out on DESE's website,
Yes.
so. It's just a multiplier to that state aid.
Versus a community where things are more affordable, the revised dollar value modifier will go up. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Board?
Well, I had my other questions.
Dr. Padmakani?
Do you want me to, no,
Well, I just was looking to see what I had, but I can wait until your second remark if I have anything.
Sure.
Actually, Danielle just asked one of my questions.
yeah, she
so-
asked one of my questions. Do you want me to go ahead?
Hey,
Okay, so
Sufficient.
I
Great
was
job.
going to ask about revised dollar value modifier, and I understood it until she gave the
so
examples.
there's a definition
and then
in
it
the
stopped.
comprehensive budget document, okay? So I'm just gonna read it. So the dollar value modifier is an index of relative purchasing power of a dollar provided by it's basically a cost of living differential for the area in which you live in.
Purchasing power, so our purchasing power is higher, therefore we need less money.
We're getting a little more money because of this, but maybe not as much as some other districts. And our multiplier, it's just based on the region in which you live in, and I don't know how they actually calculate.
So what is the DVM 1.032 for FY '25? So is it going up?
Going down.
But what is 1.031? Is it current?
1.032 is current,
Oh, and then FY '26 is 1.031.
correct.
So the
It's
fact
going
that
down very slightly.
So the fact that the number's going up means our purchasing power is lower.
I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, I can live with that. I will read some
I
more on
will
that.
read some more on that and get you a better
My
answer.
next question is on the very next slide. Oh, that was 10, so 11. And then you just really quickly said, and the water's going down, and I didn't quite catch that. Can you re-say what, you said the assumptions are that we're going to get $14.95.
Okay, so
per
the dollar amount per WADA is going down. So in the current year, we're getting paid $15.13 per WADA. Next year, we'll get paid $14.95 per WADA.
Oh, that's going down,
That's going
not
down.
our WADA. Okay.
But our
And it's-
WADA is going up because of that
Because of the
membership.
90/10.
Correct. So that's why we're seeing a net
That's-
increase.
that was my confusion.
Had that
Okay.
membership thing not changed, we'd see a decrease, right? So if the WADA calculation had remained the same and the dollar amount went down, we'd see a decrease.
You mean the value, the thing that we were just talking about?
Sorry, the dollar amount for this, the $14.95.
This went down because there's just less Prop C tax being collected.
So my understanding from DESE is this went down because that WADA calculation is going up so much, it's increasing everyone's WADA, so the same pot of money.
Oh, our pie slice is getting smaller. Got it, okay. Then my last slide is 21. I gotta remember this. Oh, so we talk about all the time, ending fund balance, operating fund. So I got that. What is a restricted fund balance?
Yeah, so that restricted fund balance represents the launch fund balance. So it is
Oh, okay,
restricted
I
for
got
the-
it, 1.7, I remember. Okay, so it's called, so it's just the launch fund balance.
Right, and that's presented in the audit every year. Our auditors will also talk about restricted fund balance. We have one of those, if you look at the general budget summary, like the debt service, all of that balance was restricted because you could only use it for debt.
Yeah, but if it just said restricted launch fund balance, I would have not, okay, I
can
just got it.
Update this, but in the future, there could be other things that are restricted as well, right? So there are, in operating fund, you could restrict just various things, so that's why it's a
That means you
pretty
can't
generic
touch it, it's
title.
only for that particular
Yeah, we've dedicated for those particular
department
funds,
or
right.
whatever venue it is.
So we
Okay.
trap launch revenues and expenditures in two different funds, so Fund 15 and Fund 25. So that restricted fund balance are for those funds as a part of the operating fund.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Board Member Huff?
I just have a quick follow-up on the WADA and the change in calculation. When you say 10% weighted membership, does that mean enrollment? Does weighted
In
membership?
essence, it's not exactly enrollment, but it's a membership count that happens two times in the year. So it happens in September, and there's a whole thing of, September and January, I knew those dates. But the way that membership is calculated, there's a look-back period and where they hear the prior 10 days, and there's a whole bunch that goes into what that membership number is. So it's not just straight enrollment.
It's not straight enrollment.
It's close,
Okay.
close to it, and we definitely want it to be high, and there will be an emphasis on making it great in the coming years, because it matters more now, and it's a great addition to our state aid, because again, we turn the lights on every day for this many kids to show up, but we're only getting paid currently for the average attendance that they have. So, if we are turning the lights on for 2,000 kids in a building, but only 1,500 are showing up every day, we're getting paid for 1,500. But we're having expenditures for 2,000.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments from board members? I will just say, in regard to Board Member Huff's question and comment, there is almost a mad dash by building administrators to get everybody accounted for by September 20th, I think is the date.
The third last
Okay.
Wednesday in September and
There you go.
January.
I mean, we're really trying to solidify that. Somebody's missed several days. Are they coming back? Can we go find more students, whatever we need to do? So, I mean, it's a big deal, and people pay a lot of attention to it, so that's a good question. I'm going to ask for you to clarify.
Okay.
Did I understand you to say that a snow day
And
costs the district $1 million?
be happy to go back to that favorite slide.
Please. I mean, that really is
Eye-opening.
eye-opening and sobering a little bit. And we've expanded, in the past, had the opportunity to expand that pay to paraprofessionals, and where in the past we haven't always done that. I mean, I'd like to think that will always be the case. But that's huge. Give us the exact number again that it costs per day for school?
It's on the average, right? So it's $1.4 million.
Okay.
So.
All right.
So it's just taking our expenditures divided by our operating dollars. And I would say, really during the school year, it's probably even more than that, because some of those staff, and some of those things aren't happening during the summer. So our summer, really, operating costs are fairly low as
Right.
compared to the 9 months that we're actually in full-blown instruction. So.
Well, I like the practice that we have now, but it is expensive.
I agree, and I know there are several who are very appreciative of it, and, but I'll just leave my comments at that.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Stasel.
Thank you.
Board members have had the opportunity to participate in small group budget meetings and ask questions, so thank you to the staff, everyone, for being so conscientious and thorough and hand-holding of all of this. I mean, this isn't the first time many of us have heard, or several of us have heard this. It is a huge responsibility, we know that. It's a huge responsibility on staff. I think the board certainly feels the weight of the importance of these decisions as well. And so we each keep learning more as we go through the process. So thank you very much, Dr. Lathan, for giving us those small group opportunities. Appreciate it. Okay, item 8.01, change orders and agreements. Mr. Sean Dilday will update us.
So in your board packets this evening is change order and agreements. As you can tell, this month is a significant one as the projects are moving forward. We're seeing a lot of things to moving forward to get the buildings done. This evening, I'm asking for approval to approve $643,458 or $485.19. This is to keep these projects moving forward. Can I answer any questions?
Questions, comments? Board Member Thomas Tate?
I think you've covered it before in another presentation, but I'm noticing that there's still construction for safety and security with different agreements. How far are we from finishing those? I thought we were closer to finishing those safety and security updates.
So safety and security, we still have cameras systems that we're putting in, and we have access control still out to be completed. Access control should be coming to the board in probably in the August board meeting. This is moving forward the camera project.
Other questions, comments? Board Member Provance?
Outstanding work on the Pipkin site, just to get it ready. And you were telling me, how early do you think that we can get into Pipkin? Okay, now, you did, you said that maybe,
I'm very optimistic on Pittman. The contractor is moving forward. They're very aggressive.
Wonderful job.
As you can tell from yesterday, we should be in there several months ahead of
That's
what we
incredible.
anticipated.
Reed is absolutely outstanding, and what is a projected guess?
Reed, we should be finishing up in the spring and moving in for start of school year next year. And optimistically, I'm hopeful that we'll be the same with the Pipkin building, but that's being optimistic.
Nothing wrong with that.
I like it to be optimistic.
Other questions or comments from board members? Yes, Dr. Mahatmakani?
I have a specific question and then a general question. So my specific question's on the change order for Pipkin Middle School. Was that just the building permit was given Courtney, they took it back because it really should have gone to Crossland? Is that what happened there?
So we did a swap of scope of work. Courtney owned the property until May 30th. Crosslands wanted to get in there ahead of schedule, so they swapped out the scope of work.
Okay.
Crossland's responsible for that work.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask okay, we've talked about this before, and I've just kind of been digesting this. So a couple of meetings ago, when we had change orders and agreements, I had an aha moment, because you said it, that these aren't, it's the change orders, but the agreements have always been there. It's nothing nothing has changed, right? This is just when they're coming up, when they're due, right? It's just do you know what I'm talking about? We were wondering, so what happened? And those are the change orders.
So a change order is we had an accepted contract
And then this is different.
with, say, this particular case with Courtney and Crosslands. We did a change order to the contract. We did a deduction out of the Courtney contract, and we added it to the Crossland contract. So
Right.
they swapped the scope of
I
work.
get it. So for example, we're going to build this room and it has a bathroom. We changed our mind and we're going to have 2 bathrooms. So now we're going to have to spend more. So that's a change.
That would be a
right?
change and an add to the contract.
Right.
Added dollar amount.
Got it. So I understand change order. An agreement is something that was always part of the original bid, right? There's nothing,
So we budget like FF&E,
right.
so the FF&E is the agreement piece of it. So that
FF&E
is like
stands for,
furniture. So like, for example, cameras, we're gonna put cameras in the Reed building. That was not part of the contract with the contractor, but we have a budget for it. The agreement is to go out with a separate subcontractor to do that, so that
okay, so
fee
these
is
are,
gonna hit
these are all the things that are on top of what was in the construction bid.
outside of the construction. bid.
So the board has never seen this before, that's why it's coming to us.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
So there's budget there for it, and we're utilizing the budget, asking you for approval to move forward with
Right,
this.
but it wasn't part of, let's say you came to us, you know, Crossland, it's going to cost X amount of dollars to build the school. We say yes, but then later on, we have to add these things that were never part of that, and that's why they come as an additional agreement.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I think I finally got it. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the board? Thank you, Mr. Tilday. Our recommended action is that the board approve the change orders and agreements as presented. Do I have a motion? Board Member Provance, a second? Board Member Thomas Tate? Let's vote. Oh, Lordy, I just lost it. Yeah, mine didn't, well, mine went back to, never mind what it's doing here. We're going to take a in-person vote because mine didn't come up for an electronic vote. Board Member Provance?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries with 7. Thank you. Mr. Dilday, Facility Planning, Architectural Services and Recommendations.
So as you recall, last month I brought before you the architectural services to move the Bingham project forward. This evening I am here to get approval to move forward with the Bissett Architectural Services. During the selection process, we have made the selection to go with the Okie Thomas and Associates in combination with FGM Architecturals out of St. Louis. This is a great pairing and a great opportunity for moving the Bissett project forward, and I'm asking for approval from the board to accept the contract from Okie Thomas and FGM Architects.
I'll second that, but I have a question.
Dr. Thomas Tate, your motion, okay. And Dr. Mahabakani, yours was the second. Questions, comments, or discussion? Dr. Mahabakani.
So Okie Thomas Associates, this is a new architect for us. And I'm not familiar with FGM. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
FGM is a national company. They do school buildings across the United States. They're a large firm. They have partnered with the Okie Thomas Group to bring their expertise into and assist with the collaboration of the remodel and addition to the business school.
Okay, thank you. And then for a second time recently, I asked for an updated table where it has all of them listed, and I just really, really like that. It helps me keep all the various bonds and architects and builders, and if we used our own, gosh, what's the name of that company that we used? I just went blank on it. Whether we used it or not, owner's rep. I've forgotten the name of the company. And I really like that. So, and I know if you wouldn't mind, so that I don't have to go in and add this, could you update that with this name and then just kind of resend it out to us? Do you know what I'm referring to? I just really like keeping that, only because it's a really nice reference When somebody asks, you just open up your notebook and you're like, oh, this is being built by this, and that's the architect.
List of architects and
It's really
contractors on each
nicely
project.
laid out.
Okay.
She just wants us to update it to add this last contract, because I think Bingham might need to add one. for Bingham.
Yeah.
Bingham
Yeah,
and
could you
Bissell,
just
yeah.
update it for, okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Let's vote. Hopefully mine will come up. Well, my voting is not coming up, so we'll take a voice vote again. Board Member Provance? Board Member Smart?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes with 7 votes.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's now time for a report from administration. Dr. Lathan, do you have any updates for us?
Yes, we are so excited that we celebrated the groundbreaking. Like I said, I think several people have mentioned it on yesterday for Pipkin Middle School, and very thankful. We had to do it at the last minute, just so the board and the public are aware, because they've made so much progress, and if we waited another week, the building might be up. So, just so you know, we have about 8,000 students enrolled in Explore. And then on May 27th, we held our MOCAP launch virtual learning graduation ceremony. And then overall, our class of 2025 earned over $25 million in scholarship money. And then just also want to recognize tonight, Shannon Bennon is our new president for SNEA, and so she's here in the audience. So we want to recognize and say congratulations to Shannon on your appointment. And just wishing everyone a great summer. Thank you.
Board member comments? Dr. Mahatmakani?
Well, I'm trying to remember who was there. We went to the Community Partnership of the Ozarks, summer soiree with Dr. Lathan and Miss Bruner. And I have a terrible time with names, but I remember people's faces and what they said. And there was an older gentleman that was recognized, and his comments at the podium were, and I'm going to try to remember it correctly, was organizations that do the most, that accomplish the most, are those where nobody in them takes the credit. And I think that that's SBS, or that's what we strive to be. So I'm not supposed to give credit to anyone, but I will, only because on the heels, and then we had the Pipkin groundbreaking, and I just want to big shout out to Pipkin and the incredible stride they've made in this past year, moving out of the 5% comprehensive school list. And I've had an opportunity to visit that school as part of my service on North Springfield Betterment Association. Also, I went to their Christmas program last year, only because I just pick random schools, and because I like Christmas programs, that's why. And his students, Mr. Cox's students and staff, just simply doted on him. I mean, they're just protective of him in some ways. It was, anyways, that was really, really special to be there. And I want to make a comment, kind of tied in with our budget, to just talk about our 9-month employees. And I was noting in one of our slides, we're making an investment over $4.5 million in managing student behavior. And I feel like every year we're adding on to that. So we had invested in conscious discipline and PBIS, and now we're investing in other ways and more ways, because I believe that together we're hoping to be that much needed cultural shift that values education and personal responsibility and self-control and all those things that our students are going to need when they're adults. And I just want to say God bless these 9-month employees, the teachers and the paraprofessionals, and I hope they're getting some much-needed rest this summer. I hope they're feeling a little bit better, because it's, 3 weeks out? And God bless them, and I hope they are re-energizing to come back in August. That's all I have to say.
Other comments from board? Yes, Board Member Smart.
I Just wanted to say how much I enjoyed attending one of the graduation ceremonies last month. I went to Parkviews. I especially enjoyed hearing from the two young ladies that spoke, the valedictorian, Allison Smith, and the graduation speaker who is or was the president of the Sister to Sister program at Parkview. They both shared such thoughtful messages about how important it is to get involved, the significance of finding a mentor, creating a welcoming community was very important to both of them. And this just helped build their confidence, and they both felt like it really gave them a voice. And it was inspiring to hear such strong and positive voices, which are leading the way forward. So I really enjoyed being there. So thank you for letting us come.
Other comments from the board? Board Member Huff?
Gail stole my comments. I also, as a new board member, was just so pleased to be able to attend the graduations, and it's always such a fun time to see students going out into the world full of hope and energy to take on the next adventure. So that was such a pleasure to be able to confer those degrees to the students. I got to attend Glendale. And then I was also going to point out, just, we've had a lot of great comments around budget, and I think as Dr. Mohammed Khani pointed out, there are a lot of issues locally and at the state level that are, poised to impact our funding for education. So as board members, as community members, I would just encourage us all to keep an eye on those things and advocate, because it seems like it's changing by the minute. So.
Thank you. Other comments from the board? Please, Board Member Provance.
Graduation was incredible. It's got to be the best day ever on the school board. I had the honor of Hillcrest, so we had 4 foreign exchange students, and that was kind of funny, but I'm sure they went back and told everyone they were so proud to be a Hillcrest Hornet. Hornet. It's part of the Hill. You're a Hornet. I want to thank you personally for, and I understand the chain of command, but the books that you sent home with the kids, that was great. There were workbooks, reading books, chapter books, all appropriate per age. And then I had one mother talk about how it was like a guideline for parents to help their child. The parent hadn't read the book. Hey, tell me about and it was a way to lead a discussion, and talked about setting up reading time together. So it might seem small, but it really is significant. It really is significant in their lives to turn that on. I didn't mean to stir things up too much with well, not too much, just a little bit. But yes, I love the balance. I love how comprehensive your plan is, but it covers athletics, activities, academics. It covers the elementaries, the middle schools, the high schools. Everything leads to a success-ready graduate. If discipline is the biggest problem in the classroom, then yes, we need to keep focusing on that. I had the opportunity to leave an elementary school. It was on a Friday afternoon. I thought it was funny, but the last teacher out was like a focus room teacher. And she was leaving late with a smile on her face, and she'd had the greatest week ever. I really thought that was a good sign. I mean, I probably left a little bit earlier on Friday then. But I see improvement. I see improvement in all parts of the programs. And I really just couldn't be more pleased and feel like we're in a good situation. Sarah, your comments, I do worry about the funding. I don't want to spend too much on one, when I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of the coin, and I agree. I hope that we can contact legislatures and do everything we can to support public education and their funding, because that's our only job here. Our only job on the school board is to take care of students and teachers and our students, staff. So, thank you, everyone. Have a great summer. Nice to meet you.
Other comments? Well, one commencement that hasn't been mentioned, well, Dr. Lathan mentioned it, and that was the MOCAP commencement. And there were people coming from out of state, not students. These were Missouri students, but they had family members. We almost were at standing room only in the Kickapoo Auditorium, and 80 of those students that don't attend physically in Springfield made the trip from wherever they live to come and commence that evening. And it was wonderfully gratifying, and I think there are so many things I'm proud of in public education in general, but in particular with Springfield Public Schools. We have recognized, and this happened long before, I was sitting here for sure, but this community, this school district, through leadership, has recognized education is not one size fits all anymore. We have to provide more opportunity and meaningful opportunity and make sure that the diplomas really mean something and that we do uphold some academic standards, if you will. But everybody's not getting it the same way. And whether you're going through the Missouri Options Program, those students have to take subject area tests. It's not just, I'm going to do a few worksheets and get my diploma. There are some standards there. There's accountability there. So I was so pleased to be a part of that MOCAP celebration. And one family did have grandparents drive in from Texas, and their comment was, by golly, she made it, and we're going to be here to see it. So I'm sure there was a lot of relief there. I want to echo what Board Member Huff and Board Member Provance said about what's going on in our legislature. And I'm not going to be critical of anything or anybody, but Dr. Mahad Makhani several months ago at the board table told all of us, including the audience, as well as those of us sitting here, that we need to be paying close attention and to be involved. I don't know that I've ever felt more pressure to do that than I do this school year. So as voters, I would encourage you to recognize what's going on, get involved, let your opinions be known, because we're supporters of public education. And there are a lot of things pulling at those budget strings right now, and we want to make sure that we can provide the very best for our community and for statewide. Board Member Kincaid and I had the opportunity, along with Board Member Thomas Tate, to be at a fundraiser this weekend for UGMA, which is a literacy program here in the community. It's really a national, or maybe international, and I don't know that. Okay, but we have it here locally. Okay. And it is spearheaded by Dr. Thomas Tate. It is an excellent program. I want to come again this year to visit. It's an incredible program in terms of literacy and really working with students in really a very structured way, very targeted in terms of what they need with reading instruction. It's very, very impressive to see. And so Dr. Thomas Tate was instrumental in putting together this fundraiser, and it was a good time by everyone until it started to rain. And then we all started running for the cars. But at any rate, I would encourage you, if you haven't done your research about UGMA, learn about it, get involved with it. I think you will be pleased with what you see. I certainly am. You're welcome. Budgets, thank you all very much. I said it earlier. It's very complicated, but we do take it very seriously here. And the comments about schools out for summer, well, I think there was a song about that years ago. But I will tell you, the work never ends. I mean, it just doesn't. It doesn't end for the principals. It doesn't end for the teachers. It doesn't end for the support staff. We're already planning ahead and years ahead if you look at Ms. Stasel's budget that she presents out there. So it's a continual work in progress. As I've said before, we're not perfect at it, There will be stumbling blocks, there may be mistakes made, but people are really working very hard to provide the very best that we can, that all of us can, for the students and the families that need a good education here locally. So, and regarding the soiree from the community partnership, I think the gentleman that said that remark, there were 3 adults honored, Charlie O'Reilly, and I think he's the gentleman that said it. It was Harold Bench? Okay. And Harold was, I thought it was Charlie O'Reilly, but anyway, Harold was the longtime, oh gosh, he's served our community in lots of different ways. So it was good to see him, but it was a good quote. Thank you for remembering that. And then also Barbara Lux, who was honored that night. So good things are going on in our community all the time, and we're lucky to be here. That's the way I feel. With that, oh, look at that, I'm over my time. Oh, my, 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 my. Okay. Upcoming board meeting is June the 24th. We do not meet in July. Our recommended action is that the board adjourn. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Board Member Kincaid made the motion. Board Member Thomas Tate. Let's vote, and I'm not even going to try to look at the computer. Let's just do it right here. Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. 7 votes in favor. Meeting is adjourned at 7:17. Started late and ended early. How about that?